Welcome to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners via Gov Radio 107.9 FM, respective radio stations island-wide, Tel TV Plus Channel 15, and online viewers. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, May 20th, 2026. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, Melissa Gums, to address you. Minister Gums, you have the floor. I would also like to note that Minister Gums will be leaving right after press briefing as she does have prior engagements to attend to. Minister Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the media, and good morning to the people of St. Martin. Today, I wish to provide the public with further clarity on the adjustment being made to this year's official Flag Day observance. As Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, I remain fully committed to ensuring that our national symbols, our history, and our sense of identity continue to be honored with the dignity they deserve. At the same time, I have a responsibility to be honest with the people of St. Martin about the financial realities currently facing the ministry and, in truth, the country. The Ministry of ECYS, like most, is operating in a severely constrained financial environment. That isn't an excuse. It is simply our current reality. For full transparency, last year's St. Martin Day celebrations cost the Department of Culture approximately 105,000 guilders, and it is only today that payments to those locally owned businesses are being executed. Because a budget can say one number and cash flow says another, and that is our reality. As many may know, this ministry is not an income-generating ministry. Additionally, a significant portion of our budget is legally and structurally committed to education, including the subsidies required to support the operation of schools. This means that the discretionary space available for national events, incidental subsidies, and other important initiatives has become increasingly limited. In light of these realities, the ministry has had to make difficult but necessary adjustments. These decisions, however, are not taken lightly. They are made with the understanding that every guilder spent must be carefully considered, and that the ministry must find more creative and cost-conscious ways to meet its responsibilities. For Flag Day 2026, this means that instead of hosting the traditional full public program, the ministry will be pivoting to a more digital, symbolic, and community-centered celebration. The formal program will include contributions from school children, including messages from students who would ordinarily have participated in the Flag Day parade, a symbolic flag hoisting component, a short media feature on the history and significance of Flag Day, and recorded messages from national officials. I myself will also be present at the schools that were scheduled to participate in the parade to observe and celebrate the day with our students. But let me be very clear. Scaling back the official government program does not mean scaling back our national pride. Flag Day, and indeed every national day, belongs to the people of St. Martin. It belongs in our schools, in our homes, in our communities, on our cars, in our businesses, on our boats, and in the conversations we have with our children about who we are, where we come from, and what it means to help build this country. This decision to scale back the official portion of the national observance is not unusual, nor is it unique to St. Martin, particularly in these very challenging global economic times. For example, in 2022, the government of Tanzania canceled its official Independence Day celebrations due to budget challenges for other critical projects, choosing to divert those funds to youth-related initiatives. That decision did not stop the people of Tanzania from marking and celebrating their Independence Day. Last year, the government of Trinidad and Tobago canceled their official Independence Day celebrations due to budget concerns. And while that news frustrated the population, it did not stop the people of Trinidad and Tobago from celebrating their Independence Day. In March of this year, the government of Pakistan canceled its National Day military parade to save costs as the Iran-US conflict continues to impact the price of fuel and other items. It didn't stop the people from marking and observing the day. The principle is simple. National pride does not disappear because government makes a fiscally responsible decision to reduce the cost of an official ceremony. And while I cannot officially speak on behalf of the people of Aruba, I'm relatively certain, based on how they celebrate their national days here on St. Martin, that if the day should ever come where the government of Aruba cannot financially sustain the official part of observing Dia di Bandera y Himno, you can rest assured that it will not stop the people of Aruba from celebrating their Flag Day. And why? Because culture and the activities that celebrate and reflect it rely on the participation of the people, not only the government, whether represented by this ministry or any other. Pride in our national symbols, whether an event, a person, or a flag, is not built in a government office. It is built in our homes, in the conversations we choose to have with our families about our country, in the flag we put on our car or hang outside our home or business, in the posters on our children's bedroom walls, in the books on our bookshelves, in the songs we play on the radio or on a stage or truck throughout the year. It is also built in the way we teach our children. Flag Day should be more than a government ceremony. It should be an opportunity for parents, teachers, schools, and communities to speak with our children about the meaning of the flag, the sacrifices and aspirations it represents, and the responsibility we all share in nation building. Because nation building is not the responsibility of government alone. It is the responsibility of every resident who calls this country home and benefits from the opportunities, freedoms, and identity that St. Martin provides. It is built through the events and people that we choose to show up and show out for. For example, there were more people on the strip for Ice Show Speed than there were on the side of the road to welcome home our Carifta athletes. But I'm afraid that's a mirror that those people will have to look into on their own. Let me be clear, I do not make this reference to shame anyone, but to remind us that we do have the ability to show up in large numbers when something captures our attention. My encouragement today is simple. Let St. Martin capture that same attention. Let our flag capture that same energy. As for the comments on how others can come here and make big noise for their flag days, I agree. But the governments of Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Guyana, and Dominica, Aruba, etc., aren't the ones planning these Flag Day celebrations in St. Martin. The persons who find their roots and bloodlines from those countries come together, buy their flags, request their permits, plan their logistics, and make it a point, year after year, to mark their Flag Day. Because they know what we cannot seem to comprehend. Culture is not something driven only by government. And while that may sound harsh, I say it less as criticism and more as a wake-up call to action and as an example. It shows what happens when people take ownership of their culture and make a conscious decision to celebrate who they are. That is the spirit I want to encourage among us as St. Martiners and as residents of this country. As a Member of Parliament, I attended every single Flag Day, St. Martin Day, and Constitution Day celebration planned by the previous government. For Flag Day, I observed the cost of planning and execution, from the truck rental, to DJs, to bands, to steel pan, to snacks, to logistics. And who was present, waving their flags? School children from the district selected that year, sometimes their parents, myself and maybe 2 other MPs, the former minister of ECYS, and 1 or 2 other ministers. There were rarely flags hung outside homes, businesses, on cars, or other non-government buildings. So while I understand the emotions around this decision to scale back, I also believe this moment gives us an opportunity to shift the way we observe Flag Day. It gives us an opportunity to move from depending mainly on an official program to creating a wider culture of national pride and participation. This is not about doing less for Flag Day. It is about inviting more people to do something meaningful for Flag Day. We can and must do better as regular citizens. So with this in mind, I would like to take this opportunity to invite the public to participate in a visible way by proudly displaying the St. Martin flag at their homes, on their vehicles, their boats, their businesses, wherever appropriate. If 10,000 people could have found $30 for a cowboy outfit on Amazon for Bacchanal Sunday, we could find $10 for a St. Martin flag, a rag, and a mug at Arnia Bookstore. I'm calling on schools to speak with students about the meaning of the flag. I'm calling on parents and guardians to speak with children at home about what it means to love and build a country. I'm calling on businesses to decorate their storefronts. I'm calling on drivers to place a flag on their vehicles. I'm calling on residents to wear the colors, fly the flag, take photos, share stories, and make the day visible. Show up and show off for your country, not because government planned a large ceremony, but because St. Martin is ours to honor. All of this to say, while the format may be different this year, the meaning remains the same. Our decision to scale back the official ceremony reflects the approach I believe is necessary in this moment, to be transparent about the challenges we face, responsible in how we spend public funds, and creative in ensuring that our national observances continue in a meaningful way. Flag Day is not only about ceremony, it is about pride, identity, unity, participation, and respect for the symbol that represents who we are as a people. Yes, the ministry is scaling back the official celebration this year, but I'm also inviting the people of St. Martin to scale up their own participation. Let us make Flag Day visible, let us make it educational, let us make it meaningful, and let us make it ours. The ministry will continue to do its best to meet its commitments, even under difficult circumstances. We will do so honestly, carefully, and with the people of St. Martin at the center of every decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Gums, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, Patrice Gums Jr., to address you. Minister Gums, you have the floor.
Good morning to my colleague ministers, members of the press, and to the viewing and listening public. The Ministry of Rummy is pleased to announce the launch of the public bid for the design, preparation, and construction management of a drainage system, Colby, Union Road to Simpson Bay Lagoon. The aim of the project is to minimize flooding in the surrounding areas and create a safe zone for motorists, pedestrians, and residences during heavy rainfall, whereby the runoff water will be directed to drains leading to the lagoon and eliminating the hindrance to residents and the surrounding area. The bid goes live this Friday, May 22nd, and an information session for interested bidders will take place on June 22nd at 10 a.m. Questions on the bid must be submitted by June 29th, and all bids must be submitted on the Mercell platform before 2 p.m. on August 17, 2026. Bids can be obtained for a price of 250 guilders. Secondly, I am pleased to announce that road repairs commenced last week, beginning at the airport and moving west towards Phillipsburg. This week, road works continue throughout the country and will be carried out daily between 7:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. The tentative schedule for today is the ATLH Road, Madam Estate, Mount William Hill, and ATLH Road from Dutch Quarter through to Belvedere Border Point, and finally to Bishop Hill. Tomorrow we are tackling Colby Hill, Link 1, namely Octavius Richardson Road and Little Bay Road, as well as parts of Down Street in Phillipsburg. Once again, road works will be carried out daily between 7:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. Please plan accordingly for the traffic and drive carefully past the men at work. Thank you for your patience. Regarding traffic, overall, the ministry is actively working alongside the Ministry of Tayat and Justice to address the growing traffic and mobility issues on the island. From the side of Rummy, we have been looking at optimizing existing infrastructure. This has led to development of 3 major projects which are currently going through stakeholder review. One of these projects is the rehabilitation of the Ring Road. Originally designed as a fast-lane bypass, the Ring Road has become overgrown and for a large part of its expanse, unusable. The ministry is undertaking initial site surveys of the entirety of the Ring Road with the express intent to put the road functional once again. This weekend, Rummy will begin by clearing and leveling the stretch from the traffic lights to the Lion Club roundabout on ATLH Road. Persons illegally occupying land alongside this stretch of the Ring Road are asked to have all material removed. During the course of next week, we will tackle the areas from Arch Road towards the continuation of the Lions Club roundabout on ATLH Road. I want to remind the public, clearing of this stretch is not an invitation to dispose of waste in this area. It is an effort to support mobility and traffic flow, especially as a service route for emergency and first responders. Lastly, we have commissioned the Nature Foundation, St. Martin, to conduct a public survey on the impacts of sargassum seaweed on our island. The survey is open to residents, business owners, and tourists on that side of St. Martin and will measure the health, social, and economic consequences of sargassum accumulation on our shorelines. The findings will directly guide the government in developing a sustainable evidence-based management strategy. The long-standing approach of collecting sargassum from beaches remains the most cost-effective option, but its growing presence is affecting the health and quality of life of our people and our tourism product. The survey will help us stop reacting and start planning. I encourage everyone to participate. It takes less than 10 minutes and will be available on the Rummy Facebook page, my Facebook page, as Minister of Rummy, Nature Foundation's website, and social media channels as well. With that, I come to the end of my opening remarks and look forward to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Gums, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Justice, Natalie Tacklin, to address you. Minister Tacklin, you have the floor.
Good morning, Raleika. Good morning to my colleague ministers, members of the press, and of course, the people of St. Martin. Thank you for joining us once again. I want to begin by saying that these briefings are not only for moments of crisis or major announcements, but they're also about maintaining open communication with the public. As a ministry, we believe that our people should hear directly from us, consistently, clearly, and of course, honestly. Transparency cannot only exist when things go wrong. It must also be present in our everyday work. There's a great deal happening across the justice chain every single day, much of it behind the scenes, and these briefings are, of course, an opportunity to expand on what we're doing to strengthen our institutions, improve our services, support the safety and stability of our country. Before moving on to some departmental updates, I first want to recognize a group of KPSM officers who, at this exact moment, as I'm currently speaking, are being recognized for successfully completing the Hulpofficier van Justitie Meestertoets and hercertificering process, a mouthful. But this certification is an important part of strengthening the quality, professionalism, and legal competence of our police force. To those officers, I want to congratulate them on this accomplishment and wish you that your continued commitment to training, growth, and service is important not only for the organization, but for the country as a whole. A stronger justice chain begins with capable and well-prepared professionals. And were I not here, I would have been there, so I wanted to take this opportunity, at least via this platform, to still give my congratulations since I wasn't able to attend the ceremony. Then I want to turn to some updates from Immigration and Border Protection Services, IBPS. As part of ongoing efforts to strengthen immigration services, border control, and national security, the ministry continues to invest in both staffing and operational improvements. In line with these efforts, the ministry wishes to inform the public of 3 current vacancies and openings within IBPS. Firstly, there's the application for the position of Director of Immigration, which is currently open until this Friday, May 22nd. And applications are also being accepted until May 30th for the position of Section Head of the Border and Mobile Control Unit. And of course, then we also have a 3rd position open right now, which is for the medewerker grensbewaking en vreemdelingentoezicht, and that vacancy will be open until June 3rd. You can, of course, visit the government page to see exactly what those profiles are and find the information on where to submit your application. And in the coming months, we will have more vacancies within the immigration department as well, and we will advertise those and talk about those as they become available. The positions I just mentioned, however, play an important role in strengthening border management, immigration processes, and national security efforts within St. Martin. Persons interested in serving the country through public service are, of course, encouraged to visit the Government of St. Martin page for employment opportunities, as I just mentioned, along with any additional information on the requirements and the application process. In addition to personnel strengthening, the ministry continues to modernize its operational infrastructure. Last week, a new firewall system officially arrived on St. Martin. This system will soon be installed across all our seaport locations, representing another important investment in strengthening border security, operational monitoring, and information protection at our ports of entry. And this will actually allow us now to deploy the same border management system that we're using at the airport, which is one called RADEX. We're actually currently operating 2 different types of platforms between our seaports and the airport, actually since I became minister. And now we've been able to acquire these firewalls, which is what was lacking for the seaports, in order to then ensure uniformity between the systems being used at the border. And from there now, we're also working with that same company to apply new functionality, additional functionality that we will talk about more as we deploy those. But I'm excited, at least, and happy that we've been able to achieve this milestone and that we can have some uniformity between the borders and this, or at least the airport and the seaports. Then, of course, to admissions, the public is also reminded that persons holding temporary permits or residency approvals are responsible for renewing their documentation in a timely manner. The ministry is aware that many persons have questions regarding exemptions and ongoing applications. When it comes to exemption requests, these are currently being reviewed, and only individuals with an active application on file will qualify for consideration at this time. So if you are putting in a dispensation letter to remain on the island during the course of your immigration application, make sure that you also have an immigration application submitted to the ministry. If you don't have an immigration application active with us at that time, you will not receive the exemption. And then, of course, with respect to this, we will release on other platforms additional information on this specific topic to ensure clarity for the public. So please look out for our ministry page and, of course, the government page for more specific information of this to follow. In terms of border control activity, between May 4th and May 14th, a total of 31 persons were refused entry into St. Martin. These figures reflect the continued work being carried out by immigration and border protection officers to enforce entry requirements and maintain the integrity of our borders. I also want to briefly share statistics from the Admittance and Residence Division for 2025. A total of 4,177 permit applications were submitted. 3,665 permits have been granted. 288 applications were denied, and 217 applications remain pending. These numbers represent a significant amount of ongoing administrative and operational work being carried out by the staff within the department, and I want to acknowledge their continued efforts under what is often a very demanding workload with not enough individuals to do that work. So to the ladies over at Admissions, my hat off to you, and thank you for the work that you have been doing. And of course, I should not forget the compliance department because their work is equally important. Then I also want to highlight ongoing efforts within the Customs Department today. Our customs officers continue to strengthen border control and enforcement efforts across the island. Since the beginning of the year, targeted controls have been carried out at the borders, marinas, passenger vessels, yachts, and along the coastline to improve compliance with customs laws and regulations, and of course to increase security at our borders. These efforts are also being supported through an ongoing cooperation with the Dutch Customs. So we have currently Dutch customs officers here twinning with our local officers. And during the first quarter of 2026, customs operations resulted in the arrest of 2 individuals in connection with suspected weapons and narcotics related offenses. One suspect remains incarcerated pending further investigation, while another individual was fined. The Customs Department is also investigating the discovery of approximately 10 kilograms of cocaine found on board an international vessel that was docked in St. Martin. However, due to the ongoing investigation, no further details can be released on this specific topic at this time. More recently, on May 14th, customs officers conducting a routine control at one of our marinas arrested a passenger after suspected marijuana was discovered in his baggage. The investigation remains ongoing. These operations reflect the continued work being carried out to strengthen border security, combat illegal activity, and also protect our borders. Finally, or not finally, I have one more. Then, of course, the DSRP, which is our prison reform. I want to briefly highlight what work we have going on over there. The Ministry of Justice continues to strengthen rehabilitation and reintegration efforts through a series of ongoing activities and engagements focused on education, employability, reintegration, and building stronger connections between detention and society. Over the past weeks and months, several activities supported by UNODC have taken place within our detention and rehabilitation sector. These engagements have helped lay important groundwork for longer-term programs and reforms that the ministry is working to further develop and bring fully to life. As part of these efforts, stakeholders, community members, civil society, and the private sector are being invited to participate in important upcoming discussions centered on rehabilitation, reintegration, workforce development, and of course, second chances. If you are part of the private sector or workforce development sector, I encourage you to register for the private sector dialogue taking place on May 26th, 2026. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Minister of TIAT is even joining us on that day, maybe. Yes. So and then of course, if you're part of civil society, community organizations, or you're simply interested in contributing to discussions surrounding reintegration and rehabilitation, then I also encourage you to participate in another dialogue that we're having, which is our community and prison dialogue on reintegration. And that one is taking place tomorrow on May 21st. You can find the registration links on our Facebook and Instagram pages. The ministry believes meaningful reform requires participation from the wider community, and these discussions are an important step in building stronger partnerships and sustainable solutions for St. Martin by St. Martin. Finally, I want to touch on upcoming international engagements involving the Ministry of Justice. The ministry will be participating in two important international forums over the next month. First, next week, I'll be in Trinidad for the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, known as the CFATA for the CFATF, in order to discuss our follow-up report to show what progress we have made as a country. While I have the initial follow-up report, we will, of course, release more information on that after the plenary, but thus far, the CFATF Secretariat has noted that we have made good progress within the next year. And I would also like to take this opportunity before the plenary next week to again thank our national committee that we've been working with every 2 weeks, which has been a multidisciplinary, multi-ministry team that I've put together. I attend personally as minister once a month during these meetings, and the team has done really excellent work in the past months. And I know that this is always very difficult because everybody has very demanding workloads within their ministry. It's difficult, of course, to take your time to then have to spend extra time to do these other matters that we don't immediately see the visibility and the tangibility of what we're doing. But really great work has been done, and of course now the work is to implement legislation over the coming year, but a lot of that groundwork has been set. And again, I want to thank every member of that committee and every ministry that has participated, because this is a task that we can only take on together. Secondly, I will also be attending the Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice. This is the CCPCJ, and this is one of the United Nations' main policy-making bodies on crime prevention and criminal justice, where we've actually been invited to, on a high level, discuss some of the reforms that we are undertaking here at St. Martin to serve as a blueprint for the rest of the region and even other parts in the world. These engagements are important because they allow St. Martin to continue learning, building partnerships, and strengthening our justice system through international cooperation and shared expertise. Crime, border security, financial investigations, cybercrime, trafficking, and justice reform are no longer issues that countries can address alone. While there is a lot of work to be done, participating in these forums ensures that St. Martin remains engaged in international discussions, informed on emerging challenges, and connected to the best practices that can help strengthen our institutions locally. As a ministry, we remain committed to continuous improvement. That means investing in our people, modernizing our systems, strengthening cooperation, and staying engaged both locally and internationally in ways that support a safer and more effective justice system for St. Martin. Thank you, and I remain available for any questions.
Thank you, Minister Tacklin, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication, Grisha Heilige-Martin, to address you. Minister Heilige-Martin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Good morning to you. Good morning to our media present, and good morning to those listening and viewing online. Today, I want to update the public on three important matters that affect our economy and the daily lives of our people: the modernization of the Department of Economic Licenses, DEL, and fuel prices, and government's action to strengthen oversight of GB. These issues seem separate, but they're all connected by one goal: building a government that works better for the people of St. Martin. Whether it is reducing red tape for an entrepreneur, pursuing responsible relief at gas pumps, or ensuring even greater transparency and accountability at our national utility company, GEBE, our focus is the same: practical solutions that are lawful, responsible, and sustainable. I understand the frustrations many people feel. Sorry. Excuse me. I understand what it means when a small business owner waits months for a license. And I understand what it means when a parent fills up the pump and worries about how to stretch the family budget. I understand the concern families and businesses feel when electricity costs rise and confidence in GEBE remains low. People are not asking for perfection now. They're asking for relief, stability, transparency, and honesty from their government. And these are not abstract policy issues. They affect real people, real businesses, and real households. And that is why government is taking action. Not with shortcuts, not with slogans, but with steady, deliberate work aimed at delivering lasting results. Today, I would like to provide with the public with an important update on the ongoing restructuring and modernization of the Department of Licenses, DEL. Many of you can recall that during the summer of 2025 last year, I stated publicly that serious intervention was needed with that department. The department was facing long-standing operational challenges and a growing backlog, outdated manual system, and increasing frustration from the business community. At that time, DEL had more than 400 pending applicants and matters to work on, to deliver. The reality was simple. The system was no longer sustainable. Applicants were waiting far too long and staff were overwhelmed, and the department remained heavily dependent on manual in-person processing. As a result, the ministry made a decision in 2025, the summer of 2025, to temporarily restructure the DEL's operation in order to reorganize the internal workflows, review the process pending files, improve efficiency, and lay the foundation for a more modern and digital system. From the outset, I made it clear that the future of DEL had to be digital. So business owners should not have to close their doors to take time away from running their companies to simply submit paperwork or check on status of application. So following those efforts, the ministry launched a pilot phase, DEL's online business licenses submission portal. This marked the beginning of the department's digital transformation. The goal has always been to create a system that is more efficient, more accessible, and better equipped to serve the business community in a faster and more professional manner. Today, we're entering the next phase of that transition. The pilot phase of the online portal has now been completed, and the current platform is closed on since May 9th, 2026, to allow staff to focus on an intense processing and continue reducing the DEL matters that are pending, and will permanently limit walk-in services between May 11 to May 12. This was already published. During this period, the public may collect process licenses daily between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. DEL is scheduled to fully reopen next week, Monday, May 25th, or is it 26th? 25th, yes, with an updated procedures as the modernization process continues. What this means for the business community is simple: faster and more predictable process for obtaining licenses that they need to operate. So most importantly, these efforts are already producing measurable results. In less than a year, DEL has reduced its backlog from more than 400 pending matters to now 60. That is a significant progress. It means hundreds of businesses and entrepreneurs have received the approvals and that they were waiting on. It means that staff are gaining control of the system that has become unmanageable. And it demonstrates that the public is moving in a right direction. And I want to commend the staff of DEL for their hard work throughout this transition. Change of this magnitude is never easy, but it is necessary, and we are serious about improving service delivery and building a government that functions more efficiently for the people and the business community of St. Martin. The ministry remains fully committed to continuing the modernization of DEL, reducing unnecessary bureaucracy, and continuing a licensing system that is more streamlined, transparent, digital, and service-oriented. Next, I want to talk about our gas prices. So over the past several weeks, there has been a great deal of public discussions about gasoline prices. Some have suggested that this ministry is only monitoring the situation and not taking action. Today, I want to speak directly to the people of St. Martin and to set the record straight with facts. As of last week, the consumer price of gasoline stood at $3.20 per liter. To put that into perspective, when the previous government reduced the excise tax in 2022, gasoline was selling at $3.29 per liter, and the price fell to approximately $3.50. Today, despite continued volatility in global oil markets, the price is only 5 cents higher than their relief of 2022. The reality is that St. Martin has experienced fuel prices at similar and even higher levels before. The difference today is that this government is working towards a lawful and sustainable framework for relief rather than temporary reactions without long-term structure. The difference is that this government is pursuing relief in a lawful and financially responsible manner. It is often said that the previous government lowered the excise tax to provide relief. That is true. What is not mentioned is that the Council of Ministers, the then Council of Ministers, the Council of Advice raised serious concerns about how the decision was made in 2022. The Council stated that the legal procedure required by law were not properly followed. In other words, the process did not meet the standards of good governance. We will not repeat that mistake in 2026. The people of St. Martin deserve relief, but they also deserve a government that acts within the law. So monitoring is not passive. Monitoring is responsible economic management. Every fuel price adjustment must be based on objective factors, including international posted prices, freight and insurance costs, the fixed liquid throughput fee, fixed wholesaler and retailer margins, fixed excise tax, and turnover tax. This is a regulated price system designed to protect the consumers from arbitrary price increase and price gouging. This is not guesswork. This is not politics. It is a rule-based system. And together with the Ministry of Finance, we are working on a responsible relief package. We're pursuing two tracks simultaneously. Temporary relief, which is the first track, because both fuel prices and fuel consumptions have increased, government is collecting somewhat slightly more turnover tax. So what this means is that there may be some room to provide relief without placing additional pressure on the country's finances. We are now examining whether a portion of that natural revenue growth can be responsibly used to support a temporary reduction in the excise tax and provide a relief at the pump. For families and businesses, that could translate into a lower fuel cost and some much-needed breathing room. Secondly, the next approach is a long-term framework. At the same time, we are developing a structured framework that would allow government to respond more quickly and transparently when global fuel prices spike. The goal is to ensure that when the international prices rise sharply, government has a lawful and ready mechanism to cushion the impact on consumers. The objective is to provide relief while safeguarding the country's financial stability. That is the difference between responsible governance and short-term political reactions. Lowering excise tax is not just simple as flipping a switch. It must be done legally, responsibly, and sustainably. And that is exactly what this government intends to do, because the people of St. Martin deserve real solutions and not shortcuts. GEBE, I would like to now provide the public with a clear update on the steps that government has taken regarding GEBE, the recent fuel clause increase, and the activation of the supervisory mechanism under the Electricity Concession Ordinance. Because before discussing where we are today, it is very important for the public to understand that this government has been working on these issues for more than a year. And this did not begin with the most recent fuel clause increase. So in January, to put things in perspective, in January 2025, government formally mandated the Bureau, the BTP, Bureau Telecom, to conduct an independent review of GEBE's tariff. April 2025, the BTP, with the support of RAC, which is the Regulatory Authority Curaçao, completed the evaluation report. That report identified significant gaps in GEBE's data, their tariff methodology, the maintenance planning, and cost transparency. It also found that the fuel clause formula could not be independently validated. This was due to lack of cooperation from GEBE to provide the data to BTP and RAC. August 2025, government requested the resignation of the former supervisory board due to governance concerns. Then by November 2025, MP Omar Otley submitted a draft ministerial regulation, a MR, aimed at placing electricity costs and fuel pricing under government control. I want to acknowledge MP Otley for his initiative. His proposal reflects a concern we all share, that the people of St. Martin deserve transparency and relief. However, the Electricity Concession Ordinance is clear. Tariffs must be established by national decree containing general measures LBHAM and not a ministerial regulation MR. And those tariffs must be grounded in a verified cost data. February 2026, a new supervisory board was installed to stabilize the governance. And at that time, I, as Minister of TIAT, requested that GEBE management demonstrate compliance with the concession and submit a tariff structure proposed for review and validation. Fast forward to March 2026, GEBE responded, but the response revealed significant areas of non-compliance. The requested tariff proposal was not submitted, and GEBE indicated that a draft had been sent to the supervisory board for review and would be forwarded to government once approved. To date, the proposal has not been received, and this brings us now to where we are today, May 2026. A ministerial decree was signed by myself and the Minister of Rami, formally designating BTP as a supervisor under the Electricity Concession Ordinance. The decree is currently with Legal Affairs for publication and will take into effect immediately upon publication. So one may ask, why can't government just simplify a new tariff? There is a misconception that government can simply declare a new tariff, electricity tariff. Article 12, paragraph 4, or sub 4, of the Electricity Concession Ordinance is very clear. Apart from social consideration, tariffs must be based on cost orientation. That means they must be based on actual investments, operational costs, and the financial realities of the concession holder. GEBE cannot invent a tariff. GEBE cannot guess a tariff. Government cannot invest a tariff. And government cannot guess a tariff. And government cannot set a tariff without verified data. This requirement protects consumer. But it also protects the continuity of the country's only electricity provider. If tariffs are set incorrectly, consumers may be overcharged or GEBE may become financially unstable. Neither outcome serves the people of St. Martin. People are understandably frustrated with GEBE, but we must be realistic. St. Martin needs a functioning electricity company. We need a reliable power, not just today. We need reliable power, not just today, but for years to come. And that is why the law requires tariffs to balance consumer protection and the long-term viability of GEBE. So what is BTP's legal authority based on this MBA that the Minister Vrami and I just signed? Some have said that BTP was involved before and nothing changed. That is true, and in one respect, GEBE previously provided technical assistance, but this time is fundamentally different. Last year, BTP was assisting. This year, BTP is supervising. This year, under Article 20 and 21 of the Electricity Concession Ordinance, BTP has full supervisory powers. Once the decree is published, BTP will have the legal authority to demand information, conduct inspections, audit operational financial data, review tariff calculation, verify the fuel clause methodology, assess compliance with all concession obligation, report on compliance directly to the ministers, and trigger enforcement measures under the law. What this means for the public is simple. For the first time, an independent authority will have the legal powers to verify GEBE's numbers, tests its assumptions, and hold the company accountable under the law. These are not symbolic powers. These are real legal tools. Now let's talk about the consequences for non-compliance. So under Article 29 of the Electricity Concession Ordinance, anyone who violates the concession or obstructs the supervisor commits an offense. The law provides for fines and imprisonment. These are real consequences, and they will be enforced if necessary. Moving forward, requests for information must be complied with, oversight mechanism will be enforced, and all operations must function fully within the framework of the concession and the law. There's another important part of the concession that has been overlooked far too long. Article 14 requires GEBE to increase the share of renewable energy in a generation mix. This has not happened. With BTP formally designated as supervisor, renewable energy compliance will no longer be optional. It will be monitored and it will be enforced. And failure to comply will be treated as violation of concession, and St. Martin cannot continue depending 100% on imported fuel. We must transition, and now we have the mechanism to ensure that mechanism begins. So in closing, I want to say to you, St. Martin, to the people of St. Martin, I know you're struggling. I know the cost of living is high, and I know trust in GB is low. That is precisely why government is acting. For the first time since the Electricity Concession Ordinance came into force in 2010, the supervisory mechanism established by law is being fully activated for the first time. For the first time, there will be real oversight, real accountability, and real transparency. Government is acting responsibly and lawfully to protect consumers, strengthen the utility sector, and restore a public confidence. Whether we're modernizing DEL, pursuing responsible fuel relief, or strengthening oversight of GB, our objective is the same: to build institutions that work better for the people of St. Martin. The people of this country expect a government that listens, acts, and delivers. They expect solutions they can feel in their daily lives: faster service, fairer prices, and greater accountability from the institutions they depend on. A government that reduces unnecessary delays, a government that follows the law, and a government that puts the interests of the people first. That is the work we're doing. It may not always be quick. It may not always be easy, but it is necessary. And it is work that this government is committed to continuing for the people of St. Martin. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you, Minister Heilige Martin, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council Ministers Press Briefing for today, May 20th, 2026. Thank you for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session, and as Emil Lee of Island Radio is our only media partner, you will now have the floor to pose your questions. Also, please know we only have about 10 minutes.
Thank you. I'll try and keep it quick. For Minister of Tia.
Yes.
Thank you for your explanation about activities related to costs, in particular because of increasing fuel prices. In terms of immediate relief, people are seeing their GB bills coming in with higher fuel clauses. Is there anything that will bring that down on the short term, or because these sound like more long-term measures?
See, the thing is, thanks for the question, Emil. The thing is, we've asked, remember there were 3 opportunities, with this being the third, the 3 times that we've asked for the structure of the rate. We need to see the structure of the rate, and we need to understand the financially where GB is before we can even make a decision on how the fuel clause is. And GB has not been very, cooperative with that. So that's why we've taken this measure now. We need to get the understanding of how the structure of the pricing is and their financial situation, and then we can make a informed decision on the fuel clause.
Previous reports, I think it was the RAC report, the regulatory authority from Curaçao, mentioned in that report, and it was redacted out the actual number, but that even at the previous levels, the fuel clause wasn't just a pass-through, it was actually generating extra profits for GB, which was not the intention. Doesn't that give you a basis to at least challenge the increases that they're already putting in place?
So what I can say regarding that, when RAC and BTP asked for the information, GB was not forthcoming with giving them all the information. So that's why that report had a lot of loopholes, as I mentioned before in my presentation. So it was very hard for us to make a concise decision based on the lack of information. And hence the reason Minister Vrami and I has taken this route to enforce and get the information so that we can start planning and hopefully working on a better rate for the country.
If I recall, GB hasn't had an external auditor review their financials for quite some years. Is that also not a requirement?
This is based on this ministerial decree that we're putting out. That requirement will be enforced as well. And of course, it's a requirement based on what we received. I'm not saying that we haven't received anything from GB, because we have received at least 80% of it, but of course the most important thing, which is the price structure, we haven't. But based on that information we receive, they have not been in compliance with many of what is listed in the concession.
I'm going to change gears. There was a discussion, I think, in Parliament related to the cannabis legislation. Can you explain? It's my understanding that the company that is drafting the legislation will also be the company that commercially executes, monetizes that. Isn't that a conflict of interest? It's sort of the equivalent of a oil company developing drilling policy?
So the process did not originate, as you know, with this during my tenure. It started in 2022 when the former, I think it was the NA and UP government, issued a bill specifically seeking a partner that could both assist with developing the legal and operational cannabis framework and potentially remain involved in the industry afterward. So that RFP itself, it invited bidders to indicate their future involvement, including concession requests and proposed investment, with which Native Nations, which is the company that won the bid, included in the submission and was ultimately approved by government. So my administration, ours actually between the Ministry of Justice, TIAT, VSA, and I think Finance, not sure. We inherited the project under that contract, and we continue to meet those obligations based on that contract. However, we were able to negotiate additional benefits from the country, so including a $750,000 contribution towards local nonprofit organization, and we also found a way to include in that an agriculture program that supports local farmers and food productions alongside cannabis as well. So ultimately, government remains responsible for what is there, and we have to maintain what was there from the previous administration, and all we were able to do is make it put in a few more tweaks into it, and then here we are today.
And ultimately, what is government's interest in seeing this pass? Is it for judicial reasons? Is it for tax income?
Based on
Is
what
it-
is there, as based on what we receive, it's both for judicial and economic reasons.
Okay. I
Yeah.
have a couple questions quickly for Justice.
5 more minutes.
Yep.
Minister of Justice.
Yes.
Minister, you mentioned about that dispensation letters would only be issued once there's an application pending. But an application, I understand, for a work permit at VSA requires the person to be off island when submitting the application. So they won't be able to
Yep.
submit the application without that. Isn't
Yeah,
that?
but they can, because as soon as you submit your work permit request, you actually submit the proof of labor permit vacancy. So you don't need the completed permit. So we have very often where a person starts the work permit process. With that file, they then submit their immigration application, and that application remains pending until the work permit is issued. So once we see that you have the pending residency application, and we also see that you've made the effort to submit for a work permit, we will issue the dispensation letter.
And timely, because.
Yeah, I mean,
government's not
I've
always fast.
had a lot recently for businesses where they're trying to regularize some of their staff, and we have batches where we see that they're actually making that effort and have put in the vacancy, because what we've seen in the past is that this practice went really out of control. A lot of individuals received dispensation letters from previous ministers and never took any step whatsoever to submit a residency applications after that. So we want to combat that and get away from that, because otherwise it also puts a disproportionate amount of work administratively on the department side, while the individuals are actually not proceeding with any type of residency application. So we really want to see an effort, even if you show us, well, I've submitted the labor application, if we can see that. But again, and we also know that we've had the situations with VSA where they want to see, hey, did you give them permission to remain on the island? But again, you can submit the one and the other concurrently as well.
Okay.
So you don't have to wait for the issuance of the work permit.
Previously, you had mentioned that road controls for the stickers on the vehicles was not being executed because of some administrative delays. Are those administrative delays now sorted out, and will the road controls begin?
I have to check for you. I actually don't have an update on that right now.
Okay.
Indeed, the issue had been that not all stickers for certain types of vehicles had been received, I believe.
And you talked about community reintegration for inmates that are coming out. Previously, we talked about, would you look at some sort of a different employment status, perhaps more like a internship type program that you could make it more appealing for employers to give them a chance? Our current labor laws are kind of
Yeah.
restrictive or difficult sometimes to give people that chance.
Yeah, those are things that we're taking along, and it's part of the discussion that I hope that we can have on Tuesday with the private sector when we bring them in to really have these community discussions to understand, what are the barriers and what can we do then to facilitate as a government. And I know in previous advices, some of the things were to make it more attractive and incentivize employers, and on the front side, for example, I think if you hire someone, I think the state pays a portion of the salary. Of course, that might be unrealistic for us given the constraints we have as a country, but I think that we can incentivize in other ways, perhaps in certain types of tax breaks for a certain amount of time in order to allow for that or incentivize that business. So I hope that these discussions happen next week, and it's why, once again, I want to take the opportunity to invite the private sector to really come out and help us shape these reforms. We don't want to do it kind of from that tower looking down, but we want to understand from the individuals dealing with it every day that are in the trenches, what would help and how do we ensure that this is as effective as possible.
Thank you, Emil. Thank you, ministers. This does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Media partner, any further questions can be sent to the minister's cabinet in writing. Honorable ministers of the council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, May 20th, 2026. For rebroadcast, tune into stmartingov.org, St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, Tel TV Plus Channel 15, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, and YouTube channel, Government of St. Martin. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.